I want to take a look at a few 76ers trade proposals in case Daryl Morey decides to trade back on the day of the NBA draft. I'm Chris here for Philly Sports Fire. Please hit the subscribe button down below before we get into this video to keep an eye on for more 76ers content. The first one is pretty simple. It's just trading back with Charlotte to number 4. Sixers get number 4, Charlotte gets number 3. In addition, 76ers get a 2027 unprotected first-round pick from Charlotte. I went over this in another video, so kind of quickly going through it. Kind of like the idea of the Sixers just getting another unprotected pick, kind of put some pressure on Charlotte to try to compete and get better, but also they move up to number 3 and are able to freely take VJ. In this scenario, I would think it's likely the Sixers could possibly take Con Knipple. In addition, they also get that additional first-round pick. This is where we start really digging in, getting into the meat and potatoes, where the 76ers trade with the Washington Wizards. This team is very intriguing, but at the same time, not very appealing. Of course, one fun, random way we could go about this is the 76ers actually salary dumping Paul George because the Wizards don't need to really worry about cap space. Here the Sixers would get Middleton and Smart, but I don't think that's a good idea at all. I don't expect it to happen. So I don't think Paul George is pretty much just getting traded away for expiring contracts that really are just going to be bench players probably at best as they're hedging down in their career. For Jordan Poole, I just say stay away from him as much as possible. Same thing with Kyle Kuzma when he was on the Wizards. Those are just two players that you kind of want to just veer away from. But I think the only way the Sixers would do that is if they were giving away Paul George, which I don't expect to happen at all. The interesting thing is that the Wizards do have a few young players that are pretty decent, but really are still pretty raw, and I think it'll take a few years for them to really develop into pretty darn good NBA players if that's what happens. Bilal Coulibaly, Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, Keyshawn George, these players are pretty good, but I don't see the Wizards really dealing them away. I see them staying put. So last but not least, we pretty much head to two targets that I absolutely love. Really stinks about Sadiq Bey because he's getting $6.1 million next season. He has 2 more years on his contract. It's a very solid deal, and he's been very consistent throughout his career. He is a great three-point shooter, or a pretty strong three-point shooter, I should say. And he's a good rebounder as well. He's the type of guy that you can expect to give you 10, 15 points off the bench. But unfortunately, he tore his ACL last season, and it took him out the entire year. So the Sixers would pretty much be betting on him to make a comeback, and it's possible, but I don't think it's something that they should really spend their time doing. That leaves Corey Kispert as the last player. I love Corey Kispert. Excellent three-point shooter, but that's pretty much the majority of the exciting part of his game. He's not really too fast, an excellent athlete, anything like that by any means. Not a really good defender, but he would be an excellent player for the Sixers to use coming off the bench. They don't really have that bench scoring, so I would love to see Corey Kispert. But the only way this really gets done is if Kelly Oubre and Andre Drummond opt into their contracts before the NBA draft. This does have some complications on the Sixers. If players like them opt into their deals, Morey has more flexibility to work with. If he has to package them in deals to try to match up salaries, that would work so much better. But I don't think the Sixers can afford to get Corey Kispert with the players they currently have on their roster. He's making $14 million next season. He signed for 4 more years, so I think the Sixers would have to pretty much give Oubre and Drummond away, so that really just depends on if they opt in or if they don't. But for this trade proposal, the 76ers would be sending the number 3 overall pick, Andre Drummond and Kelly Oubre Jr. to Washington. In exchange, they get the number 6 pick in this draft, number 18 as well in this draft, and Corey Kispert. The salaries pretty much match up, and the Wizards move up in the draft while getting 2 players that will be free agents after this season. From the rumors we've been hearing, and with Bailey wanting to be on the East Coast in between, Georgia and New York or something, I would think it makes sense for Ace Bailey to go to a team like the Washington Wizards if that's really what his agency wants, for him to get that playing time, that pathway to stardom, which doesn't exactly make sense. But if the Wizards seem like a team that they would want him to go to, I could see that happening. So they move up to number 3. Sixers get number 6. In this situation, if the Philly was to get Corey Kispert, I don't think it makes sense for the Sixers to get Con Knippel. And the same thing with Trey Johnson. Both of them are really good scorers, but not known for their defense. And Knippel, he doesn't have great athleticism, and there's not a ton of size from Trey Johnson. So I don't see either of them really making too much sense for the Sixers to pick at number 6. If this were the case, I could see the 76ers targeting either Kaman Maluach or Colin Murray-Boyles. With Maluach, it's an interesting situation because the 76ers still have Embiid, and Adem Bona seems to be their backup center. And in a few years, if Embiid's done playing, Adem Bona might be the center the 76ers want to have in their starting lineup. But if that is the case, they will need a backup center. It would be very intriguing to see Kaman Maluach and Adem Bona splitting time up as the centers for the 76ers and anchoring that defense. The thing with this is that Maluach is probably going to be a project. I don't really expect him to be getting good regular minutes in his first season in the NBA, and maybe not his second season either. It seems like he's just really raw, and defensively he can block shots. He's got the height and the length, but rebounding, there could be questions with that. Offensively, does he really have too much to his game? It seems like the majority of what he does is catching lobs, which is not bad, but I don't really know if he has the skills that teams are going to want for him to be a regular NBA player very, very soon. So he would be a project, and really, I think he might need the most time, or some of the most time, out of these top prospects in this draft. But if Daryl Morey really thinks that it's worth it, he honestly might give it a shot, and in the end, who knows, but it might be a shot worth taking. I'm just saying, for the Sixers, if they were to take Con Knippel or Trey Johnson, if you're running off of your bench Jaron McCain, Knippel or Johnson, and Corey Kispert, sure, the shooting could be divine, but the defense. Last but not least, we have the New Orleans Pelicans. In this trade, the 76ers would be sending the number 3 pick, Jared Butler, and in return, they get Jose Alvarado, the number 7 pick, and the number 23 pick. Now, don't pay attention. It says that the 23 pick is from Indiana. That's because the Pelicans acquired that in a recent trade this offseason, but that is the Pelicans pick. Now, you might be looking for Pelicans fans. I see Jose Alvarado. I don't think they would want to be giving him, but I will tell you, Jared Butler is a pretty solid guard off the bench. He's a gritty defender and decent three-point shooter, and he's a really nice passer. Jose Alvarado is an upgrade, and I think the 76ers would have to get a better player in return than what they're giving, because they're moving down the number 7, and the Pelicans would be getting number 3, so I think it only makes sense. Also, the number 23 pick to kind of sweeten the deal a bit. With the 7th pick, I think the 76ers could take Kaman Maluach, but here I kind of want to dive into Colin Murray-Boyles. I'm going to be honest, I've not really checked too much on him this offseason. He was not somebody that really sparked my interest too much. He's known for being very physical, being an excellent defender and rebounder. And after watching some of his highlights and how opponents shoot on him, he can be an absolute defensive menace. Pairing this guy with Adem Bona in the future for the 76ers front court, that would help out Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain's deficiencies defensively, and with their size, our guy Jonathan Givony gave us the results from Colin Murray-Boyles at the NBA Draft Combine. He was 6'6.5" barefoot, so with shoes, probably 6'8". So it doesn't seem like he really has too much size, But then you'll see this is a big guy, 239.2 pounds with a 7'3" wingspan and an 8'10.5" standing reach. Looking at what this guy can do defensively, how physical he is, and with this size, I don't doubt it at all that he is going to be a very effective defender in the NBA. But there were some questions about his shooting. He's really not known to be much of a shooter at all. So maybe that's something that could develop in his game. He spent 2 years at college, so he's only 20 years old. He does have some time. If you're looking at a team like Cleveland, they've got Jared Allen, who doesn't shoot threes at all, and Evan Mobley, who will shoot a bit, but isn't necessarily a very good three-point shooter by any means. But every player is going to have some red flags, and I really don't think this would hold me back too much from the 76ers taking him in the draft. Obviously, with the NBA draft coming up, there's a lot to talk about and more potential trades that I could go into, but these are a few of them. Comment down below which one you would do, if you would do any of these, if you would negotiate and counteroffer for some of these trades. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button down below, subscribe for more content, and until next time, peace out, Philly.